The morning sun of Altara Prime cast long shadows across the crystal spires of the capital city. Kang Wu stood on the observation deck of the Federation Council building, watching the peaceful streets below. Children played in the parks while their parents went about their daily work. Nobody knew this would be their last normal day. The emergency alarm shattered the quiet morning like breaking glass. Kang Wu's communication device buzzed with urgent messages. He ran toward the council chambers as fast as his legs could carry him. Other council members were already gathering, their faces pale with worry. "Report," Kang Wu demanded as he entered the room. Li Sol, the Federation's top scientist, stood before a massive display screen. Her hands shook as she pointed to the red dots moving across the star map. Vextar Empire ships, hundreds of them. They just came out of hyperspace at the edge of our system. The room fell silent. Everyone knew about the Vextar Empire. They were the monsters parents used to scare children into behaving. For 300 years they had swept across the galaxy like a deadly plague. Every civilization they met faced the same choice: surrender and become slaves, or fight and be destroyed completely. "How long do we have?" asked Council Leader Nari, her voice barely above a whisper. Li Sol checked her readings again. "At their current speed, they will reach our outer colonies in 6 hours. The main fleet will be here in 3 days. Kang Wu felt his stomach drop. 3 days. 3 days to prepare for an enemy that had never lost a war. The Altaran Federation had always been peaceful. They were scientists, artists, and philosophers. They had no weapons that could match the Vextar war machines. "What about our defense fleet?" someone asked. 40 ships, Li Sol replied. "The Vextar have over 800. The numbers were impossible. The Altaran ships were designed for exploration and research, not war. They might as well try to stop a tsunami with paper boats." "We need to evacuate," Kang Wu said. "Get as many people off-world as possible." "To where?" Nari asked. "The Vextar will follow us. They always do. They hunt down every survivor." Kang Wu knew she was right. The Vextar Empire was famous for their complete destruction of enemy civilizations. They did not leave witnesses. They did not take prisoners. They wiped out entire species and turned their worlds into military bases. For the next hour, the council argued about impossible choices. Some wanted to fight. Others wanted to surrender. A few suggested trying to negotiate. But deep down, everyone knew the truth. The Altaran Federation was going to die. The first reports came in just after noon. The outer colonies were under attack. The Vextar ships opened fire without warning or demands for surrender. They simply began destroying everything they could see. Kang Wu watched the reports stream in from his command station. Colony after colony went silent. Millions of people simply stopped existing. The Vextar moved through the outer system like farmers harvesting crops, sir, Li Sol called out. "I'm picking up distress signals from the mining station at Beta 7. "Put it through," Kang Wu ordered. The speakers crackled with static, then a terrified voice filled the room. "This is mining station Beta 7. We are under attack. They're not trying to capture us. They're just killing everyone. Oh God, they're in the habitat sections now. They're killing the children. Please, someone help us. Please." The transmission cut to static. The council chamber fell into shocked silence. Several members began to cry. These were not warriors. They were peaceful people who had never seen real violence. The reality of what was happening was too much for many of them to process. "We have to do something," Kang Wu said, his voice tight with emotion. "What can we do?" Nari asked. "We have no allies. No one has ever successfully fought the Vextar Empire and won." That was when Li Sol spoke up from her station. "Actually, there might be something." Everyone turned to look at her. She was staring at her computer screen with an expression of desperate hope. "The emergency broadcast system," she explained. "We could send out a galaxy-wide distress signal. Every civilization would hear it. And?" Nari asked. "Someone might come to help." Kang Wu felt a spark of hope. "What are the chances anyone would respond?" Li Sol shook her head. "Honestly, very small. Most civilizations are too afraid of the Vextar to risk a war. And those that aren't afraid are usually too far away to arrive in time. But there's a chance? Yes. A small one. The council voted quickly. It was their only option. Lee Sol began working immediately to boost the signal strength of their communication array. If they were going to die, at least they would let the galaxy know what happened to them. While Lee Sol worked on the transmission, Kang Wu helped coordinate the evacuation efforts. Transport ships launched from every spaceport, carrying as many people as possible to the inner planets. But there were not enough ships. There would never be enough ships. The Vextar fleet continued its methodical advance through the system. They took their time, destroying everything completely before moving to the next target. Military bases, civilian colonies, space stations, even automated mining platforms. Nothing was left standing. Signal is ready, Lee Sol announced after 2 hours of frantic work. Kang Wu looked around the council chamber. Half the members had already left to be with their families. Those who remained looked like people attending their own funeral. What should we say? Nari asked. Kang Wu thought for a moment. What do you say when your entire civilization is about to die? How do you ask strangers to risk their lives for people they have never met? Keep it simple, he decided. Tell them who we are. Tell them what's happening. Tell them we need help. Lee Sol nodded and began recording. Her voice was steady despite the fear in her eyes. This is an emergency broadcast from the Altaran Federation. Our coordinates are included in this transmission. We are under attack by the Vextar Empire. Our defense forces have been overwhelmed. Our colonies are being destroyed. Our people are dying. She paused, looking at Kang Wu. He nodded for her to continue. We are a peaceful civilization. We have never harmed anyone. We have contributed art, science, and philosophy to the galactic community for over 1,000 years. We do not deserve this fate. Her voice began to shake slightly. If anyone can hear this message, please help us. We know the risks of fighting the Vextar Empire. We know most civilizations cannot or will not intervene. But if there is anyone out there who can help, we are begging you. Please do not let our entire species die. Please help us. The transmission went out on every frequency the Altarans knew. It raced across the galaxy at light speed, carrying their desperate plea to every corner of known space. Hours passed. The Vextar fleet drew closer. More colonies fell silent. The evacuation ships arrived at the inner planets only to find that these worlds would not be safe much longer either. Any responses to our transmission? Kang Wu asked. Lee Sol checked her instruments. A few acknowledgements. The Centauri Republic says they are sorry but cannot spare any ships. The Crystal Union says they will remember us. The Silk Road Federation wishes us luck. Empty words. Polite ways of saying goodbye. Night fell on Altara Prime. In the distance, the glow of burning orbital platforms could be seen in the sky. The Vextar had reached the middle system. They would be at the homeworld by tomorrow evening. Kang Wu stood again on the observation deck, but now the streets below were empty. Most people had been evacuated to underground shelters. Others had taken their own lives rather than face capture by the Vextar. A few had stolen ships and tried to escape into deep space. Sir? Lee Sol's voice came through his communicator. I'm detecting several ships approaching from the outer system. Kang Wu's heart jumped. Reinforcements? No, sir. They're Vextar ships, advanced scouts. The enemy had arrived ahead of schedule. Kang Wu rushed back to the command center. On Tiao. The main screen, he could see the sleek predatory shapes of Vextar vessels approaching the planet. Incoming transmission, the communications officer announced. Put it through. The screen filled with the image of a Vextar commander. The alien was tall and thin, with pale skin and completely black eyes. When it spoke, its voice was cold and emotionless. People of Altara Prime, I am War Commander Vexthul. Your resistance has been noted and found wanting. You have 1 hour to surrender unconditionally. All military personnel will be executed. All civilians will be relocated for work assignment. Your government will be dissolved. Your culture will be erased. You have 1 hour. The transmission ended. The command center erupted in desperate discussions. Some people wanted to surrender and hope for mercy. Others wanted to fight to the end. A few suggested trying to negotiate. There will be no mercy, Kang Wu said quietly. Look what they did to the outer colonies. They killed everyone, even after surrender. Then we fight, Nari declared. With what? Li Sol asked. Our defense fleet was destroyed hours ago. We have nothing left but patrol boats and civilian transports. Kang Wu felt the weight of responsibility crushing down on him. In 1 hour, the Vextar would begin their final assault. The last free world of the Alteran Federation would fall. Their 1,000-year-old civilization would end. Keep broadcasting our distress signal, he ordered. Even if nobody comes, at least the galaxy will know what happened here. Li Sol nodded and returned to her station. The signal continued to race outward, carrying their plea into the vast Dar. The human colony ship Resilience drifted through the dark space between stars like a ghost. Its hull was scarred from 100 battles, painted black to hide from sensors. Most of the galaxy had forgotten humans existed. That was exactly how Captain Park Day wanted it. He sat in his command chair reviewing supply reports. Food was running low again. Water recycling systems needed repair. The fusion reactor was making strange noises. Life in exile was never easy, but humans had learned to survive on scraps and determination. Captain, Communications Officer Yoon Hana called from her station. I'm picking up a transmission. It's on emergency frequencies. Park Day looked up from his reports. Emergency transmissions usually meant one of two things. Someone was dying, or someone was lying. In his experience, both were equally dangerous. Origin? He asked. Yoon Hana worked at her console. Long range. Very long range. It's been bouncing off relay stations for hours. Put it through. The bridge speakers crackled with static, then a voice filled the air. It was speaking in Alteran, one of the older galactic languages. Park Day understood enough to know someone was in serious trouble. Translate, he ordered. Yoon Hana's fingers flew over her keyboard. The computer began converting the alien words into human speech. What they heard made everyone on the bridge stop what they were doing. This is an emergency broadcast from the Alteran Federation. We are under attack by the Vextar Empire. Our defense forces have been overwhelmed. Our colonies are being destroyed. Our people are dying. Park Day leaned forward in his chair. The Vextar Empire. He knew that name. Every human did. They were the reason humans had been forced to leave civilized space. The translation continued. We are a peaceful civilization. We have never harmed anyone. If anyone can hear this message, please help us. We are begging you. Please do not let our entire species die. Please help us. The message ended, then began repeating. Park Day sat back in his chair thinking. Around him, the bridge crew waited for orders. They all knew what this meant. Chief Engineer Kim Tae to the bridge, Park Day announced over the ship's communication. System Kim Tae arrived within minutes. He was a stocky man with permanent grease stains on his uniform and scars on his hands from working with dangerous machinery. Like most of the crew, he had been born on this ship. Home was wherever they happened to be drifting. You heard the transmission? Park Day asked. Kim Tae nodded. Vextar Empire. Bad news. Can we reach them in time? Kim Tae pulled out a tablet and began calculating. Alteran space is 43 hours at maximum jump speed, but we'll burn out half our engines doing it. And if we don't, those people will be dead in 3 days. Park Day looked around the bridge at his crew. These people had been born into exile. They had never seen the worlds their grandparents called home. They had grown up knowing that the galaxy considered humans too dangerous to be allowed in civilized space. Opinion, he asked. Navigation Officer Han Bora spoke first. It's not our fight, Captain. We have our own people to think about. Agreed, said Weapons Officer Choi Rin. Helping them won't change how the galaxy sees us. But Yoon Hana disagreed. They asked for help. When was the last time anyone asked humans for help instead of telling us to go away? Park Day had been thinking the same thing. For 50 years, humans had been outcasts. Every civilized world turned them away. Every trade agreement excluded them. Every peace treaty specifically mentioned that humans were not welcome. But now, someone was desperate enough to ask for their help. "Get me the fleet," Park Day ordered. Within an hour, representatives from 12 human ships had gathered in the Resilience's main meeting room. Some attended in person, others by video link. They were the leaders of humanity's exile fleet: refugees, outlaws, soldiers, and survivors. Admiral Jang Hyun commanded the largest ship, the destroyer Vengeance. Captain Shin Ara led the fighter squadron aboard the carrier Defiant. Commander Lee Jun controlled the Marines on the assault ship Hammer. Together, they represented about 8,000 humans, all that remained of their species in this part of the galaxy. "You all heard the transmission," Park Day began. "The Alteran Federation is under attack." "Not our problem," said Captain Nam Ho from the supply ship Haven. "We have enough troubles keeping ourselves alive. The Vextar Empire made it our problem 50 years ago," Admiral Jang Hyun replied. "They're the ones who convinced the galaxy that humans were too dangerous. They're the ones who got us exiled." Park Day had been hoping someone would mention that. The Vextar Empire had been humanity's first major enemy in galactic politics. During the war in the Kepler system, humans had fought the Vextar with tactics that horrified their allies. When the war ended, those same allies decided that humans were almost as dangerous as the Vextar themselves. "So this is revenge?" asked Captain Shinara. "This is justice," Admiral Jang Hyun corrected. "The Altarans never did anything to us. They don't deserve to die because the galaxy is too afraid to help them." Commander Lee Jun leaned forward. "My Marines are ready for action. We've been drifting for years with nothing to fight. My people are getting soft." Park Day knew that was not entirely true. Human Marines trained constantly. They had to. In exile, weakness meant death. But he also knew what Lee Jun really meant. Humans were fighters. Being peaceful was not in their nature. "Vote," Park Day said simply. It was not even close. 10 ships voted to respond to the distress call. Only 2 voted to ignore it. Even those 2 said they would follow the majority decision. "Motion carried," Park Day announced. "We go to war." The next few hours were a blur of activity. Ships that had been drifting lazily through space suddenly came alive with purpose. Engineers pushed engines beyond safe limits. Weapons officers checked every gun and missile. Marines cleaned their armor and sharpened their knives. Yunhana worked with the other communications officers to triangulate the exact location of the Alteran distress signal. They were able to narrow it down to a star system about 40 hours away at maximum jump speed. "Sir," she reported to Park Day, "I'm also picking up Vextar military communications. Looks like they have a major fleet in that area." "How major?" "At least 800 ships." The bridge fell silent. The human fleet had only 12 ships. The mathematics were simple and terrifying. "Well," Park Day said after a moment, "we've fought worse odds." That was not exactly true, but it was the kind of thing human captains said before impossible battles. It was part of their culture now. Humans always fought impossible odds. It was what they did. Chief Engineer Kim Tae approached the captain's chair. "Engines are ready, but I'm serious about burning them out. We push this hard, and we might not have enough power to leave that system." "Noted," Park Day replied. "Do it anyway." The human fleet jumped to hyperspace in formation. 12 scarred and battered ships racing toward a battle they could not win, to save people they had never met, because someone had asked for their help. During the long hours of hyperspace travel, the crews prepared for battle. On the Resilience, Park Day walked through the ship talking to his people. He found them cleaning weapons, checking equipment, and writing letters they hoped they would never have to send. In the fighter bay, Captain Shin Ara was briefing her pilots. "Remember, we're not just fighting for ourselves this time. There are innocent people counting on us." One of the younger pilots raised his hand. "Captain, why are we doing this? The galaxy hates us anyway." Shin Ara smiled grimly. "Because this is what humans do. We fight monsters so other people don't have to." In the Marine quarters, Commander Lee Jun was giving his own speech. The Vextar Empire thinks they're the toughest predators in the galaxy. Time to show them what real predators look like. His Marines cheered. These were hard people who had grown up in exile. They had been trained from childhood to fight and survive. Many of them had never seen a peaceful world. War was all they knew. On the bridge, Admiral Jang Hyun was coordinating with the other ship captains. He had fought the Vextar before during the Kepler War. He knew their tactics and their weaknesses. Remember, he told the other captains, the Vextar fight like bullies. They're used to overwhelming weaker opponents. They don't know how to handle an enemy that fights back harder than they do. And if they adapt? Asked Captain Namho. They won't have time, Jang Hyun replied. We hit them fast and hard. No mercy, no prisoners, no quarter given. We fight like humans. That phrase had become something of a motto among the exile fleet. Fight like humans meant fighting with a ruthless efficiency that other species found disturbing. It meant using tactics that civilized beings considered too brutal. It meant winning at any cost. As they neared their destination, the human ships began receiving more detailed information about the situation. The Altaran Federation was down to its last world. The Vextar fleet was already in position around the planet preparing for the final assault. We're too late, said Navigation Officer Hanbora Park. Day studied the sensor readings. No, we're just in time. For what? To show the galaxy why they were right to be afraid of us. The human fleet dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the Altaran system. Immediately, their sensors detected the massive Vextar fleet surrounding the planet. Over 800 ships, just as the intelligence reports had said. Incoming transmission, Yunhana announced. From the Altarans? No, sir, from the Vextar fleet hung in space around Altara Prime like a metal cloud of death. War Commander Vex Thule stood on his command bridge, watching the final preparations for planetary bombardment. Soon, the last world of the Altaran Federation would be nothing but burning ruins. Sir, his sensor officer called out, detecting hyperspace signatures, multiple ships dropping out of jump space. Vexthul turned toward the tactical display. New contacts appeared on the screen. 12 ships, approaching. From the system's edge, he frowned. Intelligence had reported that all Altaran military forces had been destroyed. Identify those vessels, he ordered. The communications officer worked at his station. No response to our identification requests, sir. Ship designs are unusual, not in our database. Vexthul studied the approaching ships through the main viewer. They were strange-looking vessels, angular, aggressive, covered in what looked like battle scars. They moved in tight formation, their engines glowing with blue fire. Probably scavengers, his tactical officer suggested. Come to pick over the remains after we finish. Then they can wait their turn, Vexthul replied. Send them the standard warning. The transmission was sent. Vexthul expected the unknown ships to acknowledge and withdraw to a safe distance. Scavenger fleets usually knew better than to interfere with Vextar military operations. But when the response came, it was not what he expected. The main screen flickered and showed the image of an alien he had never seen before. The creature was bipedal, with smooth skin and small eyes. It wore a dark uniform covered in insignia Vexthul did not recognize. This is Captain Park Day of the Human Exile Fleet, the creature said. We received a distress call from the Altaran Federation. We're here to respond. Vexthul felt a chill run down his spine. Human. He knew that word from the intelligence files. Humans were supposed to be extinct, or at least banished to the far edge of the galaxy. They were the species that had fought the Empire to a standstill in the Kepler system 50 years ago. Humans, he said slowly, testing the word. I had heard your species was extinct. The human captain smiled, but there was no warmth in the expression. Greatly exaggerated. Now, about those Altarans, you're going to leave them alone. Vexthul almost laughed. 12 ships against his fleet of 800. The humans had either lost their minds or lost their ability to count. You have 12 ships, I have over 800. Leave now and I will pretend this conversation never happened. But the human's response sent ice through Vexthul's veins. Counteroffer. You leave now, and maybe some of your ships will survive long enough to warn your empire about what happens when you threaten innocent people." The transmission ended. Vexthul stared at the blank screen for several seconds. Around him, his bridge, crew waited for orders. They had never seen their commander look uncertain before. "Sir?" his tactical officer prompted. Vexthul shook himself back to the present. "Battle stations. Prepare to engage the human ships." "All of them, sir?" "It seems like overkill." "You don't know humans," Vexthul replied grimly. "They don't make empty threats." He had read the classified reports from the Kepler War. Human tactics were unlike anything the Empire had ever faced. They fought with a cold efficiency that made even Vextar warriors uncomfortable. They showed no mercy and expected none. They were the reason the Empire had pushed for human exile from civilized space. On the planet below, Kang Wu watched the sensor readings from the Alteran Command Center. The appearance of the unknown ships had delayed the Vextar bombardment. He could only hope it meant rescue, but he was afraid to believe it. "Who are they?" asked Council Leader Nari. Lee Sol worked frantically at her instruments. "I'm detecting human energy signatures." "Humans?" Kang Wu had heard stories about humans, but they were usually whispered tales told in dark corners. Most civilized species preferred not to discuss them. "They're responding to our distress call," Lee Sol continued. "But there are only 12 ships." The math was brutal. 12 ships against 800, it seemed like suicide. "Maybe they have some kind of super weapon," someone suggested hopefully. Lee Sol checked her sensors again. No unusual energy readings, standard weapons and defenses. They're heavily armed for their size, but... She trailed off, unable to finish the sentence. On the human ships, final preparations were being made. Admiral Jiang Hyun coordinated the fleet's battle plan from his flagship, the destroyer Vengeance. He had fought the Vextar before and knew they were dangerous enemies. But he also knew something the Vextar had forgotten. Humans were more dangerous. "All ships report status," he commanded. The responses came in quickly. Every ship was ready for battle. Weapons charged, shields up, engines at maximum power. The human fleet might be outnumbered, but they were prepared to make the enemy pay for every meter of space. "Remember the plan," Jiang Hyun continued. "We hit them fast and hard. Target their command ships first. Ignore the small craft. Go for the big prizes. Make them panic." On the fighter carrier Defiant, Captain Shin Ara was giving her own briefing to the pilots. Her squadron consisted of 30 fighters, fast, agile craft designed for hit-and-run attacks. "We're going to be severely outnumbered," she told her pilots. "But that's nothing new for humans. Stick to your wingmates. Trust your training. And remember, we're not trying to win a fair fight. We're trying to win, period." The pilots nodded grimly. Most of them had been born in exile. They had never known what it was like to fight for a cause beyond mere survival. Today, they were fighting to save innocent people. It felt good to have a purpose beyond just staying alive. Commander Lee Jun prepared his Marines aboard the assault ship Hammer. His people were experts in boarding actions and close-quarters combat. If the battle went according to plan, they would soon be fighting inside Vextar ships. "The Vextar think they're tough," he told his troops. "They've been bullying peaceful civilizations for centuries. Time to show them what happens when they pick on someone who knows how to fight back." His Marines checked their weapons one final time. Kinetic rifles, plasma grenades, vibro knives, and personal shields. They wore black armor covered in the scars of 100 battles. These were humans who had grown up hard and learned to be harder. The human fleet closed the distance to the Vextar formation. As they approached, the enemy fleet began to move, 800 ships turning to face 12. It should have been intimidating, but the humans showed no signs of fear. "Incoming transmission," reported Communications Officer Yoon Hana aboard the Resilience. "From the Vextar?" Captain Parkday asked. "No, sir. From the planet. The Altarans want to talk." "Put them through." The screen showed an Altaran in an official-looking uniform. His expression was desperate but hopeful. "This is Ambassador Kang Wu of the Altaran Federation. Are you here to help us?" Parkday nodded. "We received your distress call. We're here to get the Vextar away from your planet. There are so many of them, Kang Wu said. How can you possibly? Leave that to us, Park Day interrupted. Just stay down and keep your people in the shelters. This is going to get messy. The transmission ended. Park Day turned to address his crew. You heard the man. We have innocent people counting on us. Time to remind the galaxy why they were afraid of humans in the first place. The Vextar fleet had formed into a classic battle formation, heavy cruisers in the center, destroyers on the flanks, fighters screening the perimeter. It was a formation designed to overwhelm enemies through sheer firepower. The human fleet did not slow down. Instead, they accelerated directly toward the enemy formation. It looked like a suicide charge. Admiral Zhang Hyun watched the tactical display as the range closed. All ships, execute alpha pattern. The human fleet suddenly scattered. Instead of continuing their straight-line approach, the 12 ships split into 4 groups and attacked from different angles. The Vextar formation, designed to repel frontal attacks, found itself facing enemies from multiple directions. The first human salvo hit the Vextar fleet like a hammer blow. Kinetic rounds and plasma torpedoes slammed into enemy shields. The humans had targeted the command ships just as planned. 3 Vextar cruisers suffered critical damage in the opening seconds. War Commander Vex Thule felt his ship shake under the impact of human weapons. Damage report. Shields down to 60%, his tactical officer reported. They're using armor-piercing rounds. Our shields are not fully effective against kinetic weapons. Vex Thule cursed. The Empire had grown used to fighting enemies who used energy weapons. Kinetic rounds were considered primitive by most civilized species, but primitive or not, they were punching through Vextar defenses. Return fire. All ships, target the human vessels. The Vextar fleet began to respond, but they were fighting an enemy unlike any they had faced before. The human ships moved erratically, changing course and speed randomly. They made targeting extremely difficult. Captain Shin Ara led her fighters into the heart of the enemy formation. The small craft were almost impossible for the large Vextar ships to target effectively. Her pilots flew with reckless abandon, weaving between enemy vessels and striking at weak points. Gold Squadron, hit that cruiser's engine section, she commanded over the radio. Silver Squadron, target the destroyer's weapon array. Her fighters swarmed over the enemy ships like angry insects. Individual fighters meant little against capita. The silence after battle was always strange. One moment the space around Altara Prime had been filled with weapons fire and explosions. Now it was quiet except for the gentle hum of ship engines and the occasional crackle of damaged electronics. Captain. Shinara guided her fighter back toward the carrier Defiant, weaving carefully through the debris field that had once been a Vextar fleet. Pieces of destroyed ships drifted everywhere like metal snow. She had seen many battlefields, but this one was different. This time they had been fighting to save innocent people instead of just trying to survive. Gold Leader to Defiant Control, she said into her radio. Requesting landing clearance. Cleared for landing, Gold Leader. Nice work out there. Shinara smiled as she brought her fighter into the landing bay. Her squadron had performed perfectly. Not a single pilot lost, and they had personally destroyed 6 enemy vessels. Her people were good at their job, and their job was war. As she climbed out of her cockpit, Chief Mechanic No Sion ran over to check her fighter for damage. The older woman had been maintaining human fighters for 30 years. She could spot problems that others would miss. How did she handle? No Sion asked, running her hands along the fighter's hull. Like a dream, Shin Ara replied. A few hits to the rear armor, but nothing serious. Good. We'll have her ready for the next sortie in 2 hours. Shinara nodded, but privately she hoped there would not be a next sortie. The surviving Vextar ships were fleeing as fast as their engines could carry them. With luck, they would keep running until they reached the far side of the galaxy. On the assault ship Hammer, Commander Lee Jun was dealing with a different kind of aftermath. His Marines had successfully captured 3 Vextar vessels. Now he had to decide what to do with the enemy prisoners. How many? He asked his sergeant. 47 Vextar crew members, sir. They surrendered when we breached their command deck. Lee Jun frowned. Humans did not usually take prisoners. It was not that they were cruel. They simply could not afford to guard and feed enemies when they barely had enough resources for themselves. But these prisoners might have useful information. Put them in Cargo Bay 3. Post guards. I want them alive and unharmed. Yes, sir. What about interrogation? Later. Right now I want to secure those ships. They might be useful. The captured Vextar vessels were in poor condition, but human engineers were experts at making broken things work. Within hours, repair teams were swarming over the ships, patching holes and restoring power. If they could get even one of the enemy vessels operational, it would double their firepower. Admiral Jang Hyun stood on the bridge of the Vengeance, watching the rescue operations. Human crews were searching the debris field for survivors, both human and Vextar. It was dangerous work but necessary. Every life saved was a victory against the darkness. Sir, his tactical officer reported, we're receiving a transmission from the planet. Put it through. The main screen showed Ambassador Kang Wu in what appeared to be the Altaran Command Center. The alien looked exhausted, but relieved. Behind him, Jang Hyun could see other Altarans working at various stations. Admiral Jang Hyun, Kang Wu began formally. On behalf of the Altaran Federation, I want to thank you for saving our people. Jang Hyun nodded. The Vextar fleet has been defeated. The survivors are fleeing. Your planet is safe. We owe you a debt we can never repay. You don't owe us anything, Jang Hyun replied. You asked for help. We provided it. That's what civilized beings do for each other. There was a pause as Kang Wu seemed to consider his next words carefully. Admiral, our sensors detected significant damage to several of your ships. We have repair facilities that might be able to help. Jang Hyun was surprised. Most species wanted humans to leave as quickly as possible after any interaction. The offer of assistance was unexpected. That's very generous, he said. We would appreciate the help. It's the least we can do. You saved our entire civilization. The next few days passed in a blur of activity. Human ships docked at Altaran orbital stations for repairs. Human engineers worked alongside Altaran technicians, sharing knowledge and techniques. It was the first time in 50 years that humans had been welcomed anywhere. Captain Park Day walked through the corridors of Altara Prime's main space station. It felt strange to be among aliens who looked at him with gratitude instead of fear. Altaran, civilians nodded politely as he passed. Children pointed and whispered excitedly about the humans who had saved their world. He found Ambassador Kang Wu in the station's observation lounge, staring out at the stars. The Altaran looked up as Park Day approached. Captain Park Day, Kang, Wu said. Please sit with me. Park Day took a seat across from the ambassador. Through the large windows he could see human and Altaran ships working together in space. It was a sight he had never expected to see. I've been thinking about what happened, Kang Wu said quietly. The galaxy has dozens of powerful civilizations. Any one of them could have helped us. But only humans answered our call. We know what it's like to be abandoned, Park Day replied. We couldn't let that happen to someone else. Even though helping us gained you nothing, Park Day considered the question. It gained us something very important. It reminded us who we used to be. Before the galaxy decided we were monsters, Kang Wu leaned forward. Are you monsters? It was a direct question that deserved an honest answer. Park Day thought about the battle they had just fought. Human tactics had been brutal and efficient. They had shown no mercy to enemies who had shown none to others. But they had also risked their lives to save innocent people. We can be, he said finally, when we have to be. But we choose when and why. The Vextar Empire will not forget what happened here. Good. Maybe they'll think twice before attacking peaceful civilizations. And if they come back with a larger fleet? Park Day smiled grimly. Then we'll have to get more creative. On the bridge of the Vengeance, Admiral Jang Hyun was reviewing casualty reports. 3 human ships had suffered major damage. 57 crew members had been wounded. But miraculously, only 12 humans had died in the battle. The Vextar had lost over 600 ships and tens of thousands of crew members. It was a victory beyond all reasonable expectations. Sir, Communications Officer Yoon Hana called from her station. I'm picking up multiple hyperspace signatures, ships approaching from the direction the Vextar fleet fled. Jang Hyun felt his blood turn cold. How many? Difficult to tell at this range. At least 50 ships. The Admiral immediately opened channels to all human vessels. All ships, this is Admiral Jang Hyun. Prepare for possible enemy contact battle stations. Around the Alteran system, human ships powered up their weapons and shields. They had hoped for more time to repair battle damage, but it seemed the Vextar had returned with reinforcements. But when the ships dropped out of hyperspace, they were not Vextar vessels. Sir, Yoon Hana reported with excitement in her voice. I'm reading human energy signatures. It's another human fleet. Jang Hyun felt relief wash over him. How many ships? 47 vessels, sir. They're transmitting human identification codes. The Admiral smiled. Word of the battle had somehow reached other human exile fleets. They had come to help, even though the fighting was already over. Captain Park Day watched from the Resilience as the new ships took positions around the system. These were humans from other parts of the galaxy, refugees and exiles who had heard about the battle and come to support their people. The lead ship was the cruiser Independence, commanded by Admiral Ko Jin. She had been fighting Vextar forces in the Outer Rim for decades. Her fleet was larger and better equipped than Jang Hyun's exile group. Admiral Ko Jin to all human vessels. Came the transmission. We received word that humans were fighting the Vextar Empire. We came to help. This is Admiral Jang Hyun. The battle here is over, but your presence is welcome. Good to see you again, Jang Hyun. We need to talk. Within hours, representatives from both human fleets had gathered aboard the Independence. The meeting room was crowded with captains, admirals, and ship commanders. These were the leaders of humanity's scattered exile fleets. Admiral Ko Jin stood at the head of the table. She was a stern woman with gray hair and scars on her face from old battles. Like most senior human officers, she had been fighting for most of her adult life. The victory here changes everything, she began. For the first time in 50 years, humans have won a major battle defending innocent people. The galaxy is taking notice. Captain Park Day leaned forward. What kind of notice? Mixed. Some species are terrified that humans are becoming active again. Others are interested in hiring us as mercenaries. A few are even suggesting that maybe human exile should be reconsidered. Admiral Jang Hyun was skeptical. The galaxy exiled us because they feared what we might do. One battle won't change that. Maybe not, Ko Jin agreed. But it's a start. The question is, what do we do next? The debate that followed lasted for hours. Some wanted to return to the shadows and continue living in exile. Others wanted to use their newfound reputation to force the galaxy to accept them. A few suggested becoming professional soldiers, selling their services to whoever needed protection. But in the end, they reached a consensus. The human fleets would stay together and continue doing what they had done at Altara Prime, protecting innocent people for free. 6 months had passed since the battle at Altara Prime, and the galaxy was still trying to understand what it meant. News of the human victory had spread through every civilized system. Some species celebrated, others worried. Many simply tried to pretend it had never happened, but the Vextar Empire could not pretend. They had lost an entire fleet to 12 human ships. The humiliation burned in their collective memory like acid. High Command had spent months planning their response. War. Marshal Krixval stood before the assembled fleet at the edge of Vextar space. 2,000 ships floated in perfect formation, the largest military force the Empire had ever assembled. This time, there would be no surprises. This time, they would show the galaxy what happened to those who defied the Empire. All ship commanders, he spoke into his communication system. Today we begin the final solution to the human problem. We will hunt down every human ship in the galaxy. We will destroy every human settlement. When we are finished, the name human will be nothing but a warning tale told to frighten children. The massive fleet began moving toward the coordinates where human activity had last been detected. Intelligence reports suggested that multiple human fleets had gathered in the abandoned Kepler system. It was perfect. They could destroy them, all in one decisive battle. But Krixval had made one critical error. He assumed humans would fight the same way they had at Altara Prime. In the Kepler system, Admiral Jang Hyun stood on the bridge of his flagship, watching the sensor readings. The human fleets had indeed gathered here, over 200 ships from across the galaxy. Exiles, refugees, mercenaries, and warriors had all answered the call. "Sir," his sensor officer reported. "Long-range sensors are detecting a massive fleet, approaching. Estimate 2,000 Vextar vessels." Jang Hyun nodded calmly. They had been expecting this. "Signal all ships. Execute Plan Omega." What followed was not a battle in any traditional sense. The human fleet scattered like leaves in a storm, jumping to hyperspace in dozens of different directions. Within minutes, the Kepler system was empty except for automated beacons and a few pieces of interesting debris. When the Vextar fleet arrived, they found nothing but empty space. "Where are they?" War Marshal Krixval demanded. His tactical officer studied the sensor readings. "Gone, sir. They jumped to hyperspace before we arrived." "Cowards," Krixval spat. "Track them down, all of them." But tracking down the human ships proved impossible. They had split into small groups and scattered across the galaxy. Some headed for the outer rim. Others disappeared into nebula clouds where sensors could not follow. A few simply vanished into the spaces between stars. For weeks, the Vextar fleet searched desperately for their enemies. They checked every system where humans had been reported. They followed every lead and investigated every rumor. But the humans had become ghosts. Then the attacks began. The first target was a Vextar supply depot in the Corbin sector. A small human force appeared without warning, destroyed the facility, and vanished before reinforcements could arrive. No demands were made. No messages were sent. The depot was simply reduced to wreckage. 2 days later, another attack hit a military outpost near the Empire's core worlds. Again, the humans struck fast and disappeared before the Vextar could respond. This time, they left behind a simple message carved into the station's hull. "Remember Altara Prime." War Marshal Krixval found himself chasing shadows. Every time his fleet moved to investigate an attack, the humans had already moved on to their next target. They were fighting a war of harassment, striking at vulnerable targets and avoiding direct confrontation. "Sir," his intelligence officer reported during a staff meeting, "we've lost 17 supply depots, 8 outposts, and 4 patrol squadrons in the past month. The humans are targeting our logistics network." Krixval studied the star map showing the locations of the attacks. There was a pattern, but he could not quite see it. "What are they trying to accomplish?" "Unknown, sir. They don't seem interested in holding territory or capturing resources. They attack, destroy, and leave." What Krixval did not understand was that the humans were teaching the Empire a lesson. They were showing the Vextar what it felt like to be hunted by an enemy that could strike anywhere at any time. Captain Shin Ara led one of the human strike groups. Her small fleet consisted of 5 ships, fast, agile vessels designed for hit-and-run attacks. They had been operating behind enemy lines for 3 weeks, and her crews were getting very good at their job. "Target acquired," her navigation officer reported. "Vextar convoy, lightly defended." Shinara studied the tactical display. 6 cargo ships escorted by 2 destroyers. The cargo ships were carrying supplies to Vextar forces in the border regions. Destroying them would force the Empire to reroute other convoys, disrupting their entire supply chain. "All ships attack formation," she ordered. "Remember, hit hard, hit fast, get out clean." Her ships dropped out of hyperspace directly on top of the convoy. The Vextar escorts had only seconds to react before human weapons began tearing them apart. Within minutes, the entire convoy was destroyed. As her ships prepared to jump back to hyperspace, Shinara opened a channel to any surviving Vextar crew members. "This is Captain Shin Ara of the human fleet. Tell your leaders that this is what happens when you threaten innocent people. Tell them the humans remember everything." The transmission ended, and her ships vanished into hyperspace. Similar attacks were happening across the galaxy. Human strike groups led by commanders like Li Jun, Park Day and Ko Jin, were systematically dismantling the Vextar Empire's ability to wage war. They hit supply lines, communications relays, fuel depots, and isolated outposts. But the humans were careful to avoid civilian targets. They struck only at military installations and supply convoys. They wanted to hurt the Empire's war machine, not innocent people. The strategy was working. Vextar forces found themselves increasingly isolated as their supply lines were cut. Morale began to suffer as reports of human attacks spread through the fleet. Soldiers who had once considered themselves invincible began to wonder if their next patrol might be their last. On Altara Prime, Ambassador Kang Wu watched the news reports with a mixture of admiration and concern. The humans were clearly winning their war against the Vextar Empire, but the cost was growing every day. They're becoming what the galaxy always feared they were, Council Leader Nari said during one of their meetings. Kang Wu disagreed. No, they're becoming what the galaxy needs them to be. Someone has to stand up to bullies like the Vextar. But at what cost? The galaxy is already talking about renewing human exile orders. Some species want to declare humans a threat to galactic peace. The same species that wouldn't help us when we were dying, Kang Wu pointed out. The humans saved us when no one else would. I won't forget that. Dr. Lee Sol had been monitoring human communications since the battle. She had managed to decode some of their military frequencies and was tracking their operations across the Yao galaxy. They're not just fighting randomly, she reported to Kang Wu. There's a pattern to their attacks. They're systematically destroying the Empire's ability to project power into the outer regions. What does that mean? It means they're creating a buffer zone. Space where the Vextar can't operate effectively. They're protecting civilizations like ours by making it too expensive for the Empire to expand further. Kang Wu realized she was right. The humans were not just seeking revenge. They were trying to create a safer galaxy for everyone. 3 months after the campaign began, War Marshal Krixval found himself in an impossible position. His massive fleet was intact but effectively useless. The humans refused to engage in direct battle, instead continuing their harassment campaign. Supply problems were becoming critical. Several border systems had declared independence, knowing the Empire could no longer protect them. Sir, his communication officer announced. Incoming transmission from High Command. Krixval steeled himself for what he knew would be an unpleasant conversation. The Empire's leadership was not known for tolerating failure. The screen filled with the image of Supreme Commander Vextar, the Empire's ultimate authority. The ancient being looked even more intimidating than usual. War Marshal. Krixval, the Supreme Commander began. Explain to me how 12 human ships have brought our Empire to the brink of collapse. Sir, the humans are not fighting honorably. They refuse direct battle and instead attack our supply lines. Are our supply lines not worth defending? Of course they are, sir. But we cannot be everywhere at once. They strike and disappear before we can respond. Supreme Commander Vextar was silent for several moments. When he finally spoke, his voice was deadly quiet. You have failed, War Marshal. The humans have made us look weak in front of the entire galaxy. Other species are beginning to question our authority. Sir, if you would allow me to. You are relieved of command. Report to the capital for debriefing. The transmission ended. Krixval knew what debriefing meant in the Vextar Empire. He would not survive it, but the Empire's problems were far from over. The new commander, War Marshal Vextar, was just as confused by human tactics as his predecessor. The harassment campaign continued with devastating effectiveness. Then Admiral Zhang Hyun made a decision that would change everything. He sent a message directly to the Vexta.